All right, MSP leaders, if you're looking to grow your business through events, but you're struggling to get the attention of your target decision makers, we're going to help you build a process today that'll get the right people in the right seats at the right time. All right, so here's the scenario. You've built some sort of education or communication campaign, and that can be an email or a newsletter, a blog post, webinar, in-person event, or even an in-person meeting. But after you've launched that campaign, you didn't get the engagement back from your target client decision makers. And it's got you frustrated thinking that your process isn't working. Here's the good news. Education and communication campaigns still are very, very effective. There's just a few rules that you have to put in place to make sure you get the right level of engagement from that target audience. And we'll start with 3 simple rules. 1, build trust. This sounds super simple, but if you're looking for a target audience, just understand that everybody is trying to talk to them in your space. Everyone's trying to get them meeting, get them to come to a webinar, get them to read their information. And it can be overwhelming and tiring, so you have to build trust through a process. Second is event timeline, and this is where things go wrong quickly. We have to make sure we have enough time to plan properly, communicate, and execute the event. Even if this is an email, we want to make sure our message is clear, we get it to the right people, and we follow up. So whether it's education or communication, we're going to have some sort of plan in place so that we're following the process every single time and maximizing our engagement. And last is we have to have some faith, because it takes time to build trust in our campaigns. If we launch our first webinar, we're likely not going to get as many people as we want. We have to do this consistently over time to show that we're trustworthy, to show that we're giving to the community, and to get the right people to come to our events because we're providing great education. So let's unpack each of these a little bit further and show you what we're talking about. Now, first, when we talk about building trust, the easiest way to step into this is to make sure we understand who we're trying to talk to and aligning the communication that we want to have with them so that we're not talking at the wrong level. So what I mean by this is if we're going to have a community conversation, we're going to use general education. If it's a potential client, we're going to do service education at a high level. If it's a target client, somebody we really want to work with, we're going to talk about the service differentiators that we have against our competition. And if it's the target decision maker, we're going to start talking about business differentiators, how working with us is different than working with our competitors. Now, we can get into a lot of trust challenges when we talk at the wrong level to the wrong audience. If I'm going into a general community event where I should just be providing general education and I start talking about business differentiator, it's going to come off very salesy. And it's definitely going to turn people off. On the flip side, if I go into a targeted decision-making meeting, meaning they've taken time to sit down and talk with us, and I start doing a very high-level education, it's not going to hit. It's not going to resonate with them for the level of conversation that they need to have to select us as a business partner. So making sure we align our messaging with our audience is a critical step in building trust. But there's a flip side of this too. We want to make sure we're talking at the right level to the right people, but we have to build the steps one by one. If my first interaction with a target decision maker is jumping right into the business differentiators, I've lost the opportunity to show thought leadership, to show services that fit their business, to show why our services are different than other services before I get to the point where I can hopefully show that our business is easier and better to work with. And the last part about building trust is creating effective calls to action. Now, a lot of times when we say calls to action in the sales world, we think of things that will benefit our company, but we're going to switch that around and make sure anytime we create a call to action, especially in our communication and education campaigns, that it's benefiting the attendee. Now, this may be a meeting with you to discuss their vulnerabilities or challenges around cybersecurity. It could also be a free assessment, a dark web scan, things that we would normally do. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure we're providing a lot of value with that call to action. Now, once we're on the road to building trust, we have to think about our events in larger sections. And each type of event that we might have is going to have a different timeline. If we look at this engagement timeline example, and it could be different for you, but in general, we're going to look at something like a tech summit, which would be a large event. In-person events, webinars, in-person meetings, or e-info. And e-info is going to be things like emails, newsletters, blogs, videos like this. And you can see that each of them are going to have different timelines. And these timelines are holistic, meaning we have to do the planning, the marketing, and the execution all in this timeline. Now you can move faster than this, and a lot of times when you do that, you just won't get the engagement back that you're expecting. You might not get the right audience that you're hoping for to show up and attend. Now each of these event timelines are going to be a little bit different. We're going to break down webinar just as an example, but understand each of these are going to have the preparation phase, the marketing phase, and the execution phase. Now looking at this webinar timeline, we know we're taking 60 days to properly execute this. And technically this is 67 days if we look at the actual timeline, because we have a couple post-event activities and the event is going to actually execute on day 0. But our first 2 weeks are really going to be revolved around preparing for the event. What's our topic? Are we doing in-person? Are we doing webinar? What's our platform? What are we hoping for our call to action? Are we setting some KPI goals for this event? And then how are we going to notify our team so that they can spread the word as well? A lot of times, MSPs don't start this planning process until they've started the marketing process. And then they're surprised that people aren't as interested as they could be. Well, we haven't taken time to really vet out a good topic that our community needs to know. And we haven't taken the time to identify the right audience to show up. And our team might not even know that we're having a webinar coming up, so they don't know to tell everybody. So that gives us the first 2 weeks. Then if we look from day -45 to day 0 is just our activities that we're going to do throughout this timeline to notify potential people of this event. And we're going to have an initial email invite. We're going to do social media posts every week, multiples hopefully. As we move down the timeline, you'll see that we move into some direct communication with specific target client decision makers. We might get our sales team involved and ask them to bring 2 to 3 people of this target. And as we get closer and closer to the event, we're just going to increase that urgency a little bit all the way up to the last chance email. Now, once we get to the event, we're going to execute it. We're going to make sure we've practiced, we have our information correct. We've done little things like test our platform ahead of time so that the event can be as smooth as possible. And from there, this is where the majorities of MSPs stop. And you're missing out on a ton of engagement because the follow-up email to all of the attendees, thanking them for attending and making sure that they have a reminder in place for that call to action will typically produce more results than the initial call to action request. And from there, we want to make sure we do an event review. How did it go based on what we were hoping to do? Did we get the right number of people in the seats for the event? And did we have the engagement that we were expecting? So if we're continually building trust, and we're following a great process with timelines for the type of event that we're going to hold, our next step is to have faith. And that can be really challenging. Just understand that it typically takes somewhere between 12 and 18 months to really gain traction in education and communication campaigns. Now, I know when I launch campaigns, I want them to be effective immediately. But I know I have to take my time. I have to continually prove that I'm going to show up and provide great education. And over time, just like your business, the referrals will come, the communication will come, and once the target client and target client decision makers know that they can trust you for new information to help them do their job, they're going to show up. And that's it. Build trust, build a process, make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time, you've documented that process, and then have faith that it's going to work over time. If I think of an education campaign that's going to work over a year, I may have 7 different webinars, 2 in-person events, lots of social media engagement, lots of blogs, lots of emails, and a newsletter. I'm going to do all of these things in combination to build that traction over time. And while at first it may feel like nothing's happening and your process is wrong, have faith, keep delivering, and you will see results over time. I'm Jim Peterson, Principal Solution Advisor at ConnectWise, and I'm part of the ConnectWise Partner Program, where our whole goal is to help you establish your voice and build your business through marketing efforts, communication, and education. And we want to help you grow, so hit us up. Until next time, thank you very much.